Okay, so now for our last, but definitely not least, presentation of the day, we have Jim Lott from the Energy Systems Catapult, who's going to talk about the work that ERIS has been doing for the PFER programme. Over to you, Jim.
Nice to talk to you all today. I appreciate it's been a very long day with a lot of information. Please hold on for another 20, 25 minutes or so, and you can get a great introduction to ERIS, Energy Revolution Integration Service. My name is Jim Lott. I am the technical lead on the Energy Revolution Integration Service at the Catapult, at the Energy Systems Catapult, and I'm talking today on behalf of my director, Eva. Next slide, please. I don't have slide control. Can somebody click the slides, please? Thank you very much. So, what is ERIS? I just wanted to start with a little story that followed on from one earlier, which is I have a 3-year-old, and she manages to get up at exactly 6 a.m. every morning, and it's actually taken us a little while to realise that she's actually using the noise of the radiators coming on at 6 o'clock as an alarm clock. So in order to get a lie-in on the weekends, we've had to move the heating forward an hour so we can even stay in bed. Just another way that people and the energy system integrate in ways maybe we hadn't thought about before. So ERIS, Energy Revolution Integration Service. I'm going to talk about what we are, where we sit in the PFER programme. I'm going to talk a little bit about our definition of the whole energy system and how we're working in collaboration with the projects to understand the barriers. The slide in front of us very much shows our position in quite a complicated program. There's a lot of actors in this program, not just the projects themselves, the detailed designs, the demonstrators, and the concepts that we heard from this morning, but also we have wider stakeholders. We heard from Ofgem in the talk. We've got investors who are interested in this program, and through Energy Rev, we've got the academics that are bringing in all of that good external knowledge into the program so that we can all learn. And of course, Innovator acting as a hub to a lot of that wider stakeholders. So for us, ERIS, our focus is really on trying to draw the learning out of the projects themselves, working alongside the projects themselves. Next slide, please. When we're talking about whole systems, we need to understand a little bit about what we mean by whole system and what we're doing with the projects to understand this. So we're working very strongly with each of the PFER projects, both we go out with information, but also we work with them through working groups and through toolkits that we're developing. I'm really understanding what consumers want from energy. They're the people who the system is there for. We're working with them also to understand how they view local energy systems. What do they want from it? What do they want from security of it? Next slide, please. We also work with the projects to understand how their projects are seen by other stakeholders, including investors, as we've heard from today, but also, for example, local authorities. How can local authorities work with local energy systems to move forward their requirements for sort of job creation, for carbon reduction and clean air? And also, how does it tie into the citizenry in terms of power for people to make decisions? Next slide. The system really draws on the resources that sit within it. And we've developed a number of tools that help us understand what an area actually is. So we've developed a tool called the Local Energy Area Representation, which has a better acronym of LEAR, that really informs projects about the assets that sit in their project areas. They've chosen their areas for a number of reasons, and they may or may not be aware of some of the unique aspects about their areas. So what generation is there? What's the consumption? What's the demand? What type of properties are there? What's the potential for off-street parking? This can also inform the local area piece in terms of engaging with local authorities and also investors to give some good ideas of what the potential scale of investment could be, either input or output from these projects. We're also working directly with the project to develop common approaches to robust data strategies. The Catapult's work with the Data Task Force gives us, and our data best practice work gives us a good grounding in how to bring these things into usable toolkits, to take them out of the theoretical and into the actual. our business modeling teams are there to work with projects to test their business models, to try and make sure they're robust against potential future policy scenarios, and also see how flexible they are. These are the kind of things that are really attractive to investors, in knowing that that work has been done, and that work has been done in a way that it is using standard approaches, standard methodologies, so that the investors get the confidence that those risks are being reduced. We're also working with the projects, as Stephen mentioned earlier in the Energy Rev section, around gathering policy asks, if you like, and trying to collate what the policy ask or the policy changes required for these kind of projects, these local energy systems, to really, really work. We're gathering that together, and along with Energy Rev, we're gathering that evidence and presenting it to policymakers. Next slide, please. All this is quite complicated. There's an awful lot of complicated relationships within local energy systems, which also integrate with the larger relationships in the national energy system. We're working with a number of tools. We're bringing in tested methods from other sectors, such as the aspects integration, which we'll go a little bit deeper later on, into the energy sector, so that we can start really testing these relationships and testing how integrated these solutions are in reality for scaling up, for replication. Again, looking at reducing risk so that the aims of PFER can be satisfied around making investable business models. Next slide. And of course, any system can be looked at from a number of perspectives. So we're working with the projects and some of the actors and bringing our own ESC capability in to understand what perspectives are really important for these to understand, especially around local area planning, around the levers that policy have to pull, but also looking at around timescales, whether you're looking at a strategic view or whether you're looking at maybe a sub-second operational view. These are different perspectives of the same system. Next slide. So how do we do this? Essentially, we are leading a collaborative culture within PFER. We're working with all the partners, and we're to create a collaborative culture that allows everyone to work together to move everyone forwards. Collaboration is essential in finding which parts of the system work well. It's essential in terms of sharing the lessons learned so that we're not repeating the same failures, but it's also looking across sectors and bringing in ideas from other sectors. Within the project, the partners within the sectors often have a wide range of experience that they bring. There's lots of interesting areas like IP within projects. There's other sectors that have done ideas about shared IP. Are they relevant? Should we bring those in? Should we talk about them? Those kind of ideas of collaborating on the real keys should move everyone forwards. So essentially, ERIS is working with the PFER projects to understand whole system barriers and work to overcome them. And ERIS is an integral part of this PFER program. We're working with this complex sets of relationships to bring collaboration and get those whole system barriers knocked down. I'm going to hand over to a couple of my colleagues for the next section. So I'm going to introduce Matthew Lipson, head of our Consumer Insights, and Daniel Mee, a member of our Systems Integration team, who are going to dig into a couple of those areas a little bit deeper, just to give a bit of a flavour of how we work with projects, the sort of things we learn, and how we'll go forwards. Hand over to Matthew.
Thanks, Jim. So those of you who heard Jim and Ingmar's story of evil children using heating to interrupt precious weekend sleep by cooking people in bed so they wake up at 6 a.m. to play, you can think of us and what we're doing as an early warning system to design out those sorts of problems from energy innovations so we can all enjoy a comfortable lie-in on the weekend. Next slide, please. So smart local energy systems have, could we move on a slide? Sorry.
Do you want to try it actually? Because you should have control. You see the arrows?
Oh, all right.
Yeah, there you go.
Not really working. Maybe you could go back a slide and I'll just say next slide.
Okay.
Thanks very much. So smart local energy systems have potential to unlock huge value. The International Energy Agency estimate that meeting the Paris Agreement would require the sector to invest 13.5 trillion in energy efficiency and low carbon tech from 2015 to 2030. To unlock this value, consumers are going to need to benefit. And that's because at the end of every pipe and wire sits a consumer. If they can't use energy easily to get the things they want, they'll find a way to get what they need, but they might resent paying the bill, and the system might not perform as we designed it to. Historically, we haven't always got this right. So we introduced storage heaters in Economy 7 to use cheap nuclear power at night, but it turned out that people started to struggle to get comfortable and top up their heating with plug-in heaters or open fires, and that's increased their bills, as well as the electricity consumed, and caused some air pollution from the particulates. So ultimately, from a commercial perspective, if we don't design things around consumers' needs, business models can fail because things end up costing more and generating less revenue than expected. Next slide, please. So at Catapult, we've created a consumer insight capability to help energy innovators work through their innovations so they work for people. And we're supporting 25 smart local energy system innovators in 3 ways. Firstly, using research to find out what consumers actually want from energy. Second, using design to create experiences consumers will actually enjoy. And third, running trials to test products and services in the real world, and then refining the design to make sure that everything works really well in practice. There are lots of different tools for generating consumer insight. That's why we created a method map for ERIS to help innovators plan their consumer insight journey. And that's shown on the right-hand side. There's a large one available at the end of the presentation. It explains the strengths and weaknesses of 18 different methods and shows how to combine them into a bespoke plan to suit a specific project. It gives a sense of the time and the cost of each method, as well as how to organize them into a sensible sequence. Next slide, please. So a great place to start this journey is to check your offer appeals to prospective customers. So ERIS ran a wave of research using our Home Truths panel of thousands of consumers around the UK. And we asked them what they thought of several of the common smart local energy system concepts that are often talked about by the project. Peer-to-peer trading, where households and businesses sell energy they generate but don't end up using to people in their area. Demand-side response, where suppliers turn off home appliances automatically for very short periods of time to balance supply. Vehicle to grid, where we charge electric vehicles with electricity when it's cheap and sell it back to the grid when the price is higher. And heat as a service, where households can buy a warm home instead of kilowatt hours of fuel. So that when they want to replace their heating system, their provider can recommend a new system that gives them that level of comfort that they want, but without any carbon. So we found in our survey that 40% of consumers said they particularly trusted local energy companies, and they really liked the idea that they would deliver community benefits and greener energy. But 24% said they might not trust a local energy company because they worried they might not be experienced enough or reliable. So those who are more trusting of local energy companies responded a lot better to the concepts we were testing. But even still, they wanted to be absolutely sure they would still get the outcomes that they wanted from energy, so a warm home or a charged electric vehicle, before they would entertain the idea of giving up control to a service provider. Next slide, please. There's lots of talk in the energy sector about making future energy system benefits flow to everyone, but it's difficult to know how to do this in practice, especially in a smarter new energy system. Innovations have huge promise, but they also come with some risk. People often talk about learning by doing and failing fast, and that means things won't always go as expected, especially for things that have never been done before. Bad news stories early on could create consumer resistance that prevents us all taking these huge opportunities. So to help prevent that risk, we created a smarter consumer protection manual for ERIS. And this interactive toolkit includes lots of simple exercises innovators can use to spot problems and prevent them before they occur. So hopefully if the technology works, the next slide shows you a little video about how it works. So let's give that a try. So personally, I'm not getting any sound on that. So I suggest we just move forward to the next.
Services for
Oh, there you go.
technologies could bring many benefits to consumers, but this may introduce new processes that consumers may not be familiar with. To ensure the future energy system works for consumers, there needs to be new principles in place to protect them and ensure they are treated fairly. Consumers in the future energy system need to be able to get their problems diagnosed and solved, know what they are buying and sharing, get the experience they want and expect, compare different options. Introducing the Smarter Consumer Protection Manual from Energy Systems Catapult, a tool that will help you design and deliver smart energy innovation in the UK. Whether you're an energy innovator, a local authority, a small or medium enterprise, or a policymaker, it will help you identify, prioritize, and plan how to address consumer risks. You can integrate it into your product or service at any stage, no matter how far along your idea may be. Whether you are prototyping your idea or you are already selling your technology to consumers, you should be thinking about how you are going to protect your consumers. Innovation for all with smarter consumer protection.
Well done for getting the technology working. Excellent. On the next slide, I've got an example of how we've been using that protection manual with Kenza heat pump. Could you go to the next slide, Jenny? So Kenza heat pumps, they're really very, very focused on consumers. They've got lots of YouTube testimonials from happy customers, but they're also working right at the cutting edge of innovation. They're planning to upgrade social tenants' heating systems to ground source heat pumps using Octopus Agile, a time of use tariff, to save them money. So we use this consumer protection guide with them to explore the issues customers could experience from the new system. We found that there were some risks that came from consumers' systems not working quite as they expected. And Kenza realized they could manage those risks by setting expectations much more clearly earlier on. But to give you that example, consumers might find their heat pump heating their home in the middle of the day. And they might find that a bit odd if they were used to keeping their heating off in the day to try and save money. The heat pump would have been trying to use electricity when it was cheap to warm up their home for later that evening when the weather was cold, but the electricity price was higher. If consumers were worried that this could increase their bill, they might turn their heating off to try and manage their spending, and that could end up leaving them cold later that evening. Kenza realized they could manage this risk by just clearly explaining the heat pump was using cheap electricity in the middle of the day, and also helping consumers see the money that they were saving. So our simple guide even helped this very customer-focused business, and it only took us a day. So we hope it can help lots of other projects, wherever they are in their innovation journey. Next slide, please. We've been working with energy innovators for some years now, and we've learned lots about how to design and deliver energy propositions consumers love. So we created a knowledge hub called People Lab to share what we found out. Ultimately, our aim is to use this approach. Sorry, next slide, Jenny. Thank you. Ultimately, our aim is to use this approach to support innovative smart local energy system projects to make them less risky, more investable, scalable, and replicable across the UK. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Jim.
Great, thank you, Matt. That's a really helpful deep dive into that. Kenza, of course, being part of the Oxford Energy Super Hub project, hence bringing that into those projects directly so that those solutions and business cases they're putting together become that little bit more robust and that little bit more investable. Could you just next slide, please? So to sum up that section, ERIS is we're delivering consumer insight best practice with the PFER projects. And to talk a little bit more about the other half of the system, so the bit that doesn't necessarily work with consumers directly, I'd like to introduce Dan Mee, who I said earlier is one of our system integration specialists, who's going to talk a little bit about integration and systems. Dan, over to you. You may need to unmute. Can't hear you, Dan.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can. Can anybody else?
I assume if one person can, you all can. Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and it's the home stretch now, so thanks for hanging on to this way of working in a brave new world, and well done to the organisers for getting this turned around so quickly. It's great to be here today. If we can go to the first slide, please, with me. Thank you. So what I was hoping to talk to you about today was the engineering side of things. And Jim introduced earlier what we talk about in terms of systems thinking. And really it's about having this big picture view and understanding the complex set of relationships between parts of the solution. And much of what we've been doing in ERIS is around thinking about the connections, not just within the projects, but between the projects and beyond. In other words, how these local energy systems integrate with each other and the broader national piece. So my background is in systems engineering. I was in aerospace for 15 years, and systems engineering is a discipline which is common across a lot of industries, but which hasn't at a whole system level really been adopted in a big way within the energy system. There are pockets of it, it's not as widespread. So as part of ERIS, we've developed a framework that you're looking at on the screen called Aspects of Integration to try and bridge the gap a little bit and to open up some of the benefits that taking a systems engineering approach can offer while it continues to gain a foothold. Aspects of Integration provides a structured framework and asks some directed questions to help projects really question within themselves, try and explore things they don't know. So one great example is we raised some questions about 12 months ago about how smart local energy systems might operate in a competitive environment if another local energy system decided to open up in your neighbourhood and give consumers choice. And we had some really interesting discussions, and we've taken with a number of the PFER projects, we've taken that conversation on now to how they'd handle that kind of competition. So for a little bit more information on aspects of integration, and this is all a whistle-stop tour today, we have a short animation to show. Hopefully the next slide.
The energy system is made up of lots of smaller, separate, siloed systems. They usually work fine on their own, but unexpected problems sometimes occur when they have to interact with each other. We've created a framework called Aspects of Integration that helps energy system innovators identify these potential risks so that they can avoid them becoming reality. This framework first helps innovators understand and define the boundary of their product or service. It then looks across the stakeholders and elements that make up the internal and external system, including technology, operations, people, information, infrastructure, interoperability, commercial, legislation. From these, it becomes possible to define the relationships between the stakeholders and the system. Using this structured view, we can assess and prioritize the risks an innovative product or solution might face when interacting with the wider energy system. This understanding of the risks and maturity enables innovators to maximize their chances of success when bringing a new product, service, or system design to market. Visit us at es.catapult.org.uk for more information.
And there was a lot in there, big long list of things that it considers. So please feel free to go onto the website and review it later. I promise you there'll be no tests to remember those words. And so how else have we helped with systems integration? So I think in the middle of 2019, we ran a workshop targeted around interoperability. And actually, I don't think anybody this morning mentioned the challenges around interoperability, despite it being one of the buzzwords of last year. So maybe it's all sorted now. I guess when we review the questions, we'll know for sure. But like many working within the PFER portfolio or supporting functions, we've tackled the question, what does local mean? Now, unconventionally, I'm going to start with the map on the right-hand side of this picture, where I've tried to overlay the gas and electricity distribution areas within the country. And it's not the clearest of diagrams, but you sort of see that the boundaries definitely don't line up. If the Project Isle people are still here, please forgive the map, because it doesn't really seem to know where the Isle of Wight is. But the point is just to illustrate one conflict in defining a boundary. The map on the left-hand side then shows the administrative boundaries in England at least, with three coloured boundaries overlaid. So the red area illustrates Electricity Northwest DNO region. The blue is Scottish Power and in Cheshire and North Wales. And then the green line delineates where Western Power Distribution is the main starts. Now the area circled in black is a place called Knutsford. It's just south of Manchester Airport. And in this, you can actually see on a street view level, in this little area, there are two counties that come together and three DNOs and a boundary. So when we talk about local energy systems, it's interesting to know, or it would be interesting to figure out how people in areas like this could engage with multiple local area systems if they're defined by county boundaries or towns or DNO regions. So we've tried to help some projects think about that in their offerings. EVs particularly bring a unique and brand new challenge to the energy system in that previously everything to do with energy was bolted down. And now we have these things that can move. And there are new challenges that have never existed in energy, like how do you do billing for things that aren't in one place? Flexibility services might be different in different locations. Certainly integration with different network conditions are all very different, and the challenges that are faced in those different areas are all slightly different. And when you look at a place like Knutsford, it's very reasonable to expect that somebody lives one side of a boundary, works another side, and visits a relative in the third. So at a practical level, we've developed sets of tools around systems engineering methodologies to explore these kinds of challenges with multiple stakeholders. And we work with a couple during the concept phase, and we're working with one so far in the detailed design stage. So we can do next slide, please. We have released a few papers talking about interoperability, and I'm now not going to go through these bullets because I'm very conscious of time. I'm just going to summarize to say that most people think about interoperability in terms of device compatibility, where one piece of technology can talk to another, and we just say that there's much more to it. And we've worked with PFER projects in a number of ways to explore, and as Matt introduced, some of the consumer issues, so how do you compare offers? How do you remain protected? How do you switch if you're unhappy? But a particular area that we've spent some time on is the commercial section. So next slide, please. And we've worked with a number of the projects again, and we ran a workshop with all of the concept projects to look at the feasibility, viability and desirability of their business models, mostly back last year. It mostly focused around commercial interoperability. When you have these parties coming together to form consortia, our key has been on how do you align a value chain so that the motivations of different businesses, consumers, and the system are aligned so that you can deliver results that actually make sense. And on the final slide, we've taken that further to take those business models, to take those ideas around policy and regulation, and Energy Rev discussed earlier that we are working very closely together there. We've produced some introductory papers into the challenges around smart local energy systems, so both in terms of policy and regulation blockers today and those that are on the radar coming up in the next couple of years. And we've developed then into a set of simulations which can bring the physical systems markets, policies, and commercial models together. And this chart just basically shows what happens to networks in terms of demand side management, in shaving peaks. And so we can start to understand what this really means to network companies and how they can do price discovery around things like network reinforcement and upgrades. And on the right-hand side, all in one domain shows what this means in terms of energy consumption of consumers and the bills that they, ultimately the costs to deliver those services to them. So that in a safe environment, we can go and explore and take the work that Matt was talking about and just take it to its logical conclusion to make sure that it is viable as a going concern. I'm going to end there. There's lots more we could talk about, and I'd just echo what Jim said earlier, really, which is to get in touch and come and explore some of the other work that we've been doing. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. Thanks very much for that. I think that was a couple of deep dives in. Can we just drop to our last slide? Actually, yeah, skip on the next one. So Dan was just demonstrating how ERIS is delivering integration best practice with PFER projects. So well, I'm going to wrap up here. So I'll just give a quick summary of where I think we've got to. So ERIS is really an integral part of the PFER program, and we're working with all the projects to understand whole system barriers. We know the energy system is complex. There's a lot of relationships to deliver those end needs. Collaboration really is key. We're also delivering consumer insight best practice with the PFER projects. We know people like the idea of local energy systems, but they really need to know what they're getting to build trust. We also need consumers to be protected. These are new solutions. There will be teething problems. And we're delivering integration best practice with the PFER projects. These are new solutions. They will have new risks that either won't be identified now and will be emerging as they scale, as they evolve. And we need to work together. They will need to work together. Interoperability will be really key in delivering these at scale. And the business models really need to be robust and flexible. They need to be able to handle a possible wide range of future strategies as the future is wide open. Thank you very much indeed for listening. We are doing much more. Please come and find us at the Catapult or on erishub.com, where there's some good information about all of the projects and what we're doing. I hope you're all stocked up for your virtual drinks reception later. Thank you for your patience given the long day. Thank you very much. I will hand over to Rob, I believe.
So over to Rob for our closing remarks.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be very brief here because we're way over time. But I just want to thank you all for sticking out for the day. I want to thank, again, Jenny and Natasha at the KTN for putting together a remarkably seamless day on this webinar. I think it's gone really well. We'll be very interested to get your feedback on how this went, things that you prefer to have seen done differently or indeed more or less of. And Jenny's going to tell you about how to do that coming up shortly. And I'd like to thank all the presenters who've done a fabulous job in giving us a whistle-stop tour of a lot of the activities within PFER that's been developing over the last couple of years. So we've heard about a lot of the different ideas and different potential solutions that are being developed across the country. We've heard about some learnings from local energy systems that have been going on for longer. We've heard about a real sort of diversity of views from the investment community and what they're interested in, how they go about investing in businesses and projects. And we've heard about some of the more detailed work going on in the research and catapult communities in trying to understand the future of local energy systems and the key things that need to be unlocked. So it's been a real kind of whole systems tour through local energy systems, and I do hope you've enjoyed it. Please engage with the people that you've connected with today. Please engage with the projects going forward. We'll be doing more of this dissemination activity, whether virtually or in person, I can't tell you at the moment. But we will be doing something like this at least annually, and I hope more regularly than that going forwards. So until we speak again, stay well and stay sane. And I'll pass back to Jenny, who's going to just talk about some of the stuff that you'll get following on from this.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'd like to echo Rob's comments. Thank you all very much for joining the webinar today and staying with us to the very end. I'm sorry we overran by half an hour and had a few technical hiccups. Rob's very, very nice to say it all went completely smoothly, but thank you all. I hope it didn't taint the great information that was presented and discussed by everyone. As discussed this morning, you're all going to receive a whole bunch of things from us, probably next week. First of all, you get a link to the recording of the whole day. So if you weren't with us this morning, you'll be able to see what was presented this morning as well. You'll get a link to all of the slides from throughout the day, from all the presentations. You'll get a copy of our event brochure, which we created to give out to you at the live event, but we're going to send a digital copy. It has project summaries for all of the projects that have presented today, along with their contact details so that you can get in touch with them after the event. You're also going to get a link to be able to view all of the exhibition information that you would have seen at the live event. So the projects all produce a lot of very detailed posters going into a lot more detail than their presentations did on what they did. So they're worth having a look at. And then lastly, you will get a copy of the full delegate list of everybody that registered to join us. So we had about, well, over 160 at one point was our maximum, but there were 300 people registered to join. So we'll share the whole list with you. It won't have emails on, but if there's anybody on there that you want to connect with, please email me and I'll be able to make introductions for you over the email. Other than that, thank you all very much again and goodbye.